Life is a journey, and as we travel through it, we're bound to stumble. No matter how intelligent, talented, or accomplished we may be, there are moments when we will make mistakes. It's part of the human experience, and yet we often forget that these imperfections are not only inevitable, but also essential to our growth. It's easy to become discouraged, to fall into the trap of self-criticism, and even develop a deep sense of self-hatred. We can find ourselves standing at the edge of despair, questioning our worth, our abilities, and even our purpose. It's at this moment that the greatest danger arises, the temptation to give up on ourselves. But here's the thing: what if we told ourselves that it's okay to mess up? What if we embraced the idea that failure is not a reflection of our worth, but rather a necessary stepping stone toward something better? Imagine for a moment the possibility that self-love, not self-criticism, is the key to overcoming the struggles we face. In this moment of vulnerability, we must remember one of the simplest yet most profound truths in life. We must learn to love ourselves first. Self-love, however, is not something that comes easily to most of us. It's a concept that many people struggle to understand, let alone practice. We often spend more time and energy being critical of ourselves than being kind. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, that we're not capable, and that we don't deserve happiness. In a world that thrives on comparison and competition, it's easy to get caught up in these harmful narratives. But when we continually berate ourselves for our mistakes or shortcomings, we're denying ourselves the chance to grow, heal, and evolve. Imagine for a moment if we treated ourselves the way we treat others. How often do we tell our friends or loved ones, "I love you," or "you're enough"? But how often do we say these words to ourselves? How often do we pause to acknowledge our worth, our value, and our potential? In Buddhist philosophy, one of the first steps in cultivating compassion and kindness is learning to extend that kindness inward. We cannot give love to others if we do not first give it to ourselves. Buddha's teachings are profound in this regard. He understood that to genuinely love others, we must first learn how to love ourselves. It's not about being narcissistic or self-centered. It's about recognizing our own humanity, understanding that we are deserving of care, respect, and love just as much as anyone else. When we are filled with self-love and compassion, we naturally extend that to those around us. But if we are empty inside, if we carry around the weight of self-hatred, we cannot pour love into the lives of others. We must learn to heal ourselves first. So, how do we begin to practice this self-love? How do we stop the cycle of self-criticism and begin to truly appreciate who we are? The first step is to understand the destructive power of labels. Labels are powerful because they shape our identity. From a young age, we are given labels: our names, our roles, our successes, and our failures. These labels stick with us, and over time they become how we define ourselves. But here's the thing about labels: they are often limiting and narrow. A name is just a word, and a mistake is just an event. But when we start to see ourselves as a failure or not good enough, we are trapping ourselves in a story that may take a moment to reflect on how often you label yourself. How many times have you called yourself lazy, unworthy, not capable? These labels, though they may seem harmless, hold incredible power over our minds and hearts. They become self-fulfilling prophecies. The more we tell ourselves we are not good enough, the more we start to believe it. And the more we act in ways that confirm these negative beliefs. But labels are not facts. They are simply thoughts, and thoughts can be changed. Just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you are a failure. Just because you feel lost doesn't mean you lack direction. Just because you've struggled in the past doesn't mean you're doomed to fail in the future. The second step in cultivating self-love is learning to embrace mistakes. Mistakes are often seen as something to be ashamed of, but they are, in fact, one of the most valuable tools for growth. Every great person in history has made mistakes. Every successful person has faced failure at some point. But the key is not in avoiding mistakes. It's in learning from them. When we make a mistake, it doesn't mean we're bad or incapable. It simply means we are trying, we are learning, and we are evolving. Mistakes don't define us unless we allow them to. Think about it. How many times have you failed at something only to look back later and realize that the failure was a lesson in disguise? Perhaps it taught you resilience, patience, or a new way of thinking. Every mistake is an opportunity for growth, a chance to refine your character, and an invitation to try again. But only if we allow ourselves to move past the mistake and learn from it. The real tragedy lies in not learning from our errors and letting them define who we are. One of the most toxic habits we can fall into is constant criticism of ourselves and others. Criticism, when it is negative or harsh, can erode our self-worth. When we criticize ourselves, we create a narrative that we are not good enough, that we are unworthy, or that we will never measure up. But when we practice kindness and compassion instead of criticism, we begin to rewrite that narrative. The first step is to stop criticizing ourselves. This doesn't mean we should ignore areas where we need improvement, but rather that we should approach these areas with a mindset of growth and self-compassion. It's about being kind to ourselves in the same way we would be kind to a friend who's struggling. Criticism of others can also have the same harmful effects. When we criticize others, we reinforce the idea that we are better than them, that we are somehow superior. But this only creates division and fosters negativity. It takes away from the power of love and compassion, replacing it with judgment and comparison. Instead of criticizing others, we can choose to support and uplift them. We can practice empathy and understanding, recognizing that everyone is on their own journey and that we all make mistakes. When we choose kindness over criticism, we contribute to a world filled with more love and understanding. Finally, we must embrace the idea that imperfection is beautiful. The world around us is full of imperfections. No flower is perfectly symmetrical, no mountain perfectly shaped. And yet, these imperfections are what make the world so beautiful. They give depth, texture, and character to everything. Just like the natural world, we too are imperfect. But our imperfections don't make us any less worthy of love or happiness. In fact, they make us human. They are what make us unique and what allow us to grow. Embracing imperfection is not about resigning ourselves to mediocrity, but about acknowledging that perfection is not the goal. Life is not about being flawless. It's about evolving, learning, and becoming the best version of ourselves one step at a time. When we accept our imperfections, we free ourselves from the pressure to be perfect. We stop chasing an unrealistic standard and Instead, focus on the journey. We learn to appreciate the small wins, the moments of progress, and the lessons learned along the way. Happiness is not a destination. It's a way of living, a practice. It's about showing up every day, accepting who we are, and choosing to improve, even when we fall short. Self-love isn't about being perfect. It's about embracing our humanity and being kind to ourselves, flaws and all. Every day we have the opportunity to practice self-love. It's in the little things we do. Taking a moment to appreciate ourselves for getting through the day, forgiving ourselves for our mistakes, and reminding ourselves that we are enough. And just as we would offer kindness to a loved one in times of struggle, we must offer that same kindness to ourselves. It's not selfish, it's essential. The more we practice self-love, the more we can share love with the world around us. When we love ourselves, we inspire others to do the same. We create a ripple effect that spreads kindness, compassion, and positivity to everyone we encounter. So let go of the labels, embrace your mistakes, stop the criticism, and accept your imperfections. Know that you are enough, just as you are. And remember, self-love is not a destination, but a practice. Every day is a new opportunity to love yourself more deeply, to grow, and to become the person you are meant to be.